Free college football picks, week 11, part 4. I'm Tony T here with our college football pick show here for Thursday action here. We got 11 here for you today. We'll get the next 20 the next couple of days here to get all 64 in for you. And of course, we'll have the 2 for Thursday. The remainder will be with the Saturday games. Before we get started, just a couple of things. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Free college football picks are updated all season long. Free picks every day from all the major sports. We also have NFL, NBA, college basketball, NHL, European football, and more. It is a good time to subscribe. And also, if you would support our channel, hit the thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top cappers in our industry. Click the links to the hot cappers and get signed up to some of our long-term passes. Hot cappers here like Ramon, who's been hot. Collins has been red hot. Nick has been hot. I'm doing great in college football, NFL the past 30 days. Tiffany's been hot. Click the links and get signed up to some of our long-term passes. You'll find our premium picks here on the center of the page. Our best bets. Each capper can release one best bet per sport per day. We got many of them up there right now. Our $15 premium pick is a pick that each capper can release, can designate as a $15 pick, one play from their card each day, just to showcase their service to new and existing customers. And our 3-pack, which is a really good value up there. We got many up there right now. Our pick ticker right here in the center screen. If you'd like to purchase picks a la carte, they're available for you right there. Of course, all the individual plays are profit guaranteed, meaning they must turn a profit or the amount you purchase is credited back in your account for site credits. That is a profit guarantee. Also, our promo code, you can save 20% off all premium pick packages when you use that promo code TonyT at checkout. You can access our page by clicking the link in the description. Click the All Cappers tab, then get signed up. Also, love to hear from you guys, so post your picks in the comments below. And, of course, our podcast, Tony's Picks podcast form. Every pick in podcast form available on all major platforms. Just type Tony's Picks and you get all the plays there on your podcast and your favorite platform. All right, let's go ahead and let's get this one started. Georgia Southern versus Louisiana college football pick. This one here goes off on Thursday. Georgia Southern fell to 5-4 with their 38-31 home defeat to South Alabama. Eagles gained 366 yards with 88 rushing on 18 attempts. On defense, they surrendered nearly 6 yards per rush with 193 passing on 27 attempts. Kyle Van Treese completed 58% of his passes with 6.2 yards per attempt. He threw for 278 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. On the year, Van Treese 61% completion rate, 7.1 yards per attempt. Louisiana is 4-5 after their 23-17 home defeat to Troy. Ragin' Cajuns gained 315 yards with 203 rushing on 44 attempts. On defense, they limited the Trojans to under 3 yards per rush with 223 passing on 35 attempts. Ben Wooldridge completed 45% of his passes, 3.9 yards per attempt. He passed for 112 yards against the Sun Belt. Wooldridge, a 55% completion rate, 6.6 yards per attempt. Past 3 games, Eagles defense allowing 550 yards, 5.6 yards per rush, 330 yards passing with 8.4 yards per attempt. They are throwing for 349 yards, 7.7 yards per attempt. Louisiana in this span throwing the football for 266 yards, 7.1 yards per attempt. The play here will be Georgia Southern Louisiana over 59.5. Tulsa versus Memphis college football pick. This one goes off here on Thursday. Tulsa fell to 3-6 with their 27-13 home defeat to Tulane. Golden Hurricane had a season low 257 yards with 111 rushing on 34 attempts. Defensively, they surrendered nearly 7 yards per rush with 125 passing on 19 attempts. Davis Brin is questionable with a shoulder injury and missed the Tulane game. Brin on the season 60% completion rate, 8.8 yards per attempt. Braylon Braxton completed 52% of his passes, 5.8 yards per attempt against Tulane. He threw for 146 yards and a touchdown on the year. Braxton 51% completion rate, 5.6 yards per attempt. Memphis, they're 4-5 after their 35-28 home defeat to UCF. Tigers gained 433 yards with 149 rushing on 36 carries. On defense, Memphis allowed nearly 5 yards per carry with 223 passing on 29 attempts. Seth Hennigan completed 67% of his throws, 7.3 yards per attempt. He did throw for 284 yards with a touchdown, but 2 picks. On this year, Hennigan, 65% completion rate, 8 yards per attempt. He has rushed the ball 111 times, 4 touchdowns, only 2.6 yards per attempt. Past 3 games, the Tigers are averaging 446 yards, 334 yards passing, 8.6 yards per attempt. Tulsa in this span averaging a balanced 370 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt. The play here will be Tulsa and Memphis over 61.5. Alabama versus Mississippi. College football pick Saturday. Alabama fell to 7-2 with their 32-31 road overtime defeat at LSU. Crimson Tide posted 465 yards with 137 rushing on 30 carries. Defensively, Alabama allowed over 5 yards per rush with 182 passing on 32 attempts. Bryce Young, a season-low 49% completions with 6.4 yards per attempt. He passed for 328 yards with a touchdown and a pick. On the year, Young, 63% completion rate, 19 touchdowns, 4 picks, 8.2 yards per attempt. Ole Miss 8-1 after their 31-28 road win at Texas A&M as they hit their bye week. Rebels gained 530 yards with 390 rushing on 63 carries. Defensively, the Rebels allowed 6 yards per rush, 338 yards passing on 44 attempts. Jackson Dart completed 65%, 3 touchdowns, 7 yards per attempt here. Season to date, against the SEC, Dart 60% completion rate, 9.1 yards per attempt. Now, Crimson Tide defense on the road allowing 420 yards, 4 yards per rush, 262 passing yards for 8 yards per attempt. At home, Ole Miss is moving the football for 476 yards. The play here will be Mississippi at +12. Boston College versus NC State college football pick. This one goes off here on Saturday. BC dropped to 2-7 with their 31-28 home defeat to Duke. Eagles gained 405 yards with 75 rushing on 28 carries. Defensively, Boston College allowed nearly 6 yards per carry with 158 passing on 24 attempts. Phil Jerkovich has been injured, missed practice early this week. Emmett Moorhead completed 60% of his throws, 7.3 yards per attempt in his start. He threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. Moorhead, 57% completion rate, 5.5 yards per attempt. NC State sits at 7-2 after their 30-21 home win to Wake Forest. Wolfpack produced 325 yards, 115 rushing on 41 attempts. Offensively, they stuffed the Demon Deacons ground attack to under 1 yards per rush with 397 passing on 38 attempts. Jack Chambers was benched. Third string MJ Morris completed 64%, 7.5 yards per attempt. He passed for, sorry about that. This season, Morris, 64% completion rate, 6 touchdowns, 8.3 yards per attempt. Morris, a major upgrade over Chambers at the quarterback position. The play here, Boston College and NC State over 41. Miami versus Georgia Tech college football pick. This one goes off here on Saturday. Miami moved to 4-5 with their 45-3 home defeat to Florida State. Hurricanes, a season low 188 yards with 126 rushing on 33 carries. Defensively, they did allow 4.5 yards per rush to the Seminoles with 225 passing on 16 attempts. Jake Garcia threw 2 passes in the loss. Ja'Cory Brown completed 55% of his throws, 4.1 yards per attempt. This season, Brown, 42% completion rate, 3.1 yards per attempt. Georgia Tech improved to 4-5 after their 28-27 road win at Virginia Tech. Yellow Jackets season high, 463 yards, 210 rushing on 43 attempts. Defensively, Georgia Tech allowed 3.5 yards per rush, 166 yards passing on 27 attempts. Jeff Sims missed the game with precaution, recovering from a foot injury. He was a full participant in practice last week. On the year, Sims, a 58% completion rate, 5.9 yards per attempt. Zach Pyron in his start last week hit on 59% completion rate, 7.9 yards per attempt. He saw significant action in the past 2 weeks and averaged 62% completion rate, 7.5 yards per attempt. Pyron upgrades the offense for the Yellow Jackets. Past 3 games, Yellow Jackets allowing 452 yards. The play here will be Miami and Georgia Tech over 44. Louisville versus Clemson, college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. Louisville moves to 6-3 with their 34-10 home win at James Madison. Cardinals gained 467 yards with 244 rushing on 45 attempts. Defensively, they held the Dukes to nearly 4 yards per carry with 52 passing yards on 19 attempts. Malik Cunningham completed 70% of his passes with a season-high 11.2 yards per attempt. He threw for 223 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the season, Cunningham, a completion rate here of 62%, 7.4 yards per attempt. Clemson fell to 8-1 after their 35-14 road defeat at Notre Dame. Tigers this season low 281 yards, 90 rushing on 25 carries. Defensively, Clemson allowed over 5 yards per rush to the Fighting Irish, 85 passing yards on 17 attempts. DJ Uiagalelei completed 69% with a season low 4.9 yards per attempt. He had 191 passing yards with a touchdown and pick. On the year, DJ, a completion rate of 64%, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks, 7.3 yards per attempt. Clemson back home where they hold opponents at 321 yards, 2.9 yards per attempt. They do run for 5.2 yards a carry on their home turf. Cardinals do have a recent road defeat at Boston College. The play here will be Clemson at -7. UCF versus Tulane college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. UCF sits at 7-2 after their 35-28 road win at Memphis. Knights posted 427 yards with 204 rushing on 42 carries. Defensively, they allowed over 4 yards per rush to the Tigers with 284 passing yards on 39 attempts. Jason Plumlee is questionable with an injury. He missed the game last week. Mikey Keene in relief completed 78% of his passes, 7.8 yards per attempt in the win. He threw for 219 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. This season, Keene over 75% completion rate, 8.1 yards per attempt. Tulane improved to 8-1. It was a 27-13 road win at Tulsa. A Green Wave gained 482 yards with 357 rushing on 53 carries. Defensively, they held the Golden Hurricane to about 3 yards per rush with 146 passing on 24 passes. Michael Pratt completed 58% in the victory, 6.6 yards per attempt. He's passed for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Now, UCF has a notable home win to Cincinnati. On the road, the Knights are gaining 502 yards, 5 yards per rush, and 286 yards passing with 8.4 yards per attempt. The play here will be on UCF at +1.5. North Texas versus UAB college football pick Saturday. North Texas moves to 6-4 with their 52-14 home win to FIU. Mean Green put up 623 yards, 209 rushing on 42 carries. Defensively, they allowed 4.5 yards per rush to the Golden Panthers with 145 passing on 39 attempts. Austin Ani completed season highs here at 73%, 414 yards, and 12.2 yards per attempt. He threw for 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. On the season, Ani a 59% completion rate with 9.5 yards per attempt. UAB dropped to 4-5 with their 44-28 home overtime defeat to UTSA. Blazers gained 553 yards in this one with 221 yards rushing on 39 carries. Defensively, they allowed nearly 5 yards per rush to the Roadrunners with 285 passing on 31 attempts. Dylan Hopkins, he is questionable with a concussion, but is pointing to returning on Saturdays. He's practiced 2 straight days early this week. On the season, Hopkins, a 67% completion rate, 9.9 yards per attempt. Mean Green has covered 11 straight Conference USA games, past 3 games, North Texas averaging 502 yards, with UAB surrendering 402 yards, 5 yards per rush, 7.6 yards per pass attempt. The play here will be on North Texas at +6. Iowa State versus Oklahoma State college football pick. This one goes off here on Saturday. Iowa State improved to 4-5 with their 31-14 home win to West Virginia. Cyclones put up 391 yards in this one with 172 rushing on 38 carries. On defense, they allowed the Mountaineers to over 3 yards per carry with 124 passing on 27 attempts. Hunter Deckers completed 66% of the passes in the win, 6.1 yards per attempt. He threw for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the year, Deckers at 67% completion rate, 6.7 yards per attempt. Oklahoma State fell to 6-3 with their 37-16 road loss at Kansas. Cowboys put up 415 yards, 111 rushing on 35 carries. Defensively, Oklahoma State allowed over 7 yards per rush to the Jayhawks with 23 yards passing on 18 attempts. Spencer Sanders remains questionable. On the year, he is completing 58% of his passes with 7.6 yards per attempt. Third string Garrett Rangel started. 67% completion rate in the game, 7.6 yards per attempt. He threw for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. Wrangle performance encouraging in this home game here. Cyclones on the road averaging only 343 yards, and the Cowboys at home put up 501 yards a game. The play here will be Oklahoma State at plus the 1.5. Arizona State versus Washington State college football pick Saturday. Arizona State falls to 3-6 with their 50-36 home defeat to UCLA. Sun Devils gained 468 yards with 119 rushing on 31 carries. On defense, ASU allowed over 9 yards per carry with 169 passing on 20 attempts. Trenton Bourguet is questionable with an injury and has not practiced as of Wednesday. Emory Jones has been working with the first team in practice early this week. Jones this season is completing 62% of his passes, 7.7 yards per attempt. Washington State improved to 5-4 with that 52-14 road win at Stanford. Cougars posted a season high at 514 yards, 306 rushing on 38 attempts. Defensively, they held the Cardinals to under 3 yards per carry with 266 yards passing on 42 attempts. Cameron Ward completed 50% in the win, 5.5 yards per attempt. He threw for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the season, Ward a 64% completion rate, 19 touchdowns, 8 picks, 6.9 yards here per attempt. ASU has seen a pump up here in offensive production, as in their past 3 games averaging 460 yards with 337 passing with 8.6 yards per attempt. Washington State in this period struggling with pass protection, allowing 3.3 sacks a game. They had lost 3 straight prior to beating Stanford as they struggled to score points. The play here will be Arizona State here at plus the 8. Army versus Troy college football pick. This one goes off here on Saturday. Army fell to 3-5 with their 13-7 home defeat to the Air Force. Black Knights gained 145 yards with 78 rushing on 35 attempts. Defensively, Army allowed about 4.5 yards per rush to the Falcons with 98 passing on 13 attempts. Jamal Jones completed just 28% of his passes for 4.8 yards per attempt. He rushed the ball 21 times with a touchdown, but only 1.8 yards per carry. On the year, Jones a 34% completion rate, 7.2 yards per attempt. He has 59 carries on the year with 5 yards per rush attempt. Now, Troy, they've improved to 7-2, a 23-17 road win at Louisiana. Trojans gained 372 yards in this one, 149 rushing on 36 attempts. Now, defensively, they've allowed over 4 yards a carry to the Raging Cajuns with 112 passing yards on 29 attempts. Gunnar Watson completed 60% of his passes, 6.4 yards per attempt. He threw for 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Now, this season, Watson has 63% completion rate, 8.5 yards per attempt. On the road, the Black Knights allowing 463 yards, 5.2 yards per rush, 11 yards per pass attempt. At home, the Trojans holding teams to just 257 yards, 2.2 yards per rush attempt. The play here will be Troy at -9. All right, that was our college football pick show here for a Thursday. We got to the 2 Thursday game as well as 9 here from Saturday's college football. So got 44 games in. We'll get the remaining 20 in the next couple days. So make sure you like, subscribe, set notifications, and give us that thumbs up, that like. We greatly appreciate it. All right, we're back here with more picks. We got Thursday night NFL. We got still NBA and college basketball coming up for you guys a little later.